Okay, so today we're diving deep into the world of AI. And to guide us through this fascinating landscape, we're turning to none other than Geoffrey Hinton. Now, if you're not familiar with Hinton, he's been at the forefront of AI research for like decades.
He's a true pioneer.
Yeah, a real trailblazer, and he's got some seriously thought-provoking ideas about where AI is headed. What's interesting is that he's not just focused on the, technical side of things. He's really grappling with those like big picture questions, the ones that keep us up at night. Like what happens to jobs?
The societal impact.
Exactly what happens to humanity in a world increasingly shaped by AI.
And one of his most striking points is that we're at a turning point, a major turning point in AI. And he points to these, sudden explosion of tools like ChatGPT is a prime example.
Yeah, it's crazy how that went from
niche.
Yeah, from a niche topic to a household name practically overnight.
It really did.
I mean, it became the fastest growing app in history. And what I find fascinating is that Hinton himself wasn't surprised by what ChatGPT could do. He'd seen similar AI models before.
Right, he is familiar with the capabilities.
But what blew him away was how quickly the public embraced it.
That's what really surprised him.
Yeah, like, are we ready for this level of AI integration?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a bit like opening Pandora's box. Now, to really understand Hinton's perspective, we have to go back a bit. Remember, he's been championing neural networks for decades.
Even when they were considered a fringe idea.
Yeah, back in the 80s, most AI research was focused on logic and symbolic reasoning. Neural networks were kind of seen as a dead end.
Because the technology just wasn't there yet, right?
Exactly. The computers weren't powerful enough, and the data sets needed to train these networks were just too small.
But Hinton was convinced that neural networks were the key to unlocking true AI.
He saw this parallel between neural networks and the human brain. Both learning from raw data without needing pre-programmed knowledge.
And as it turns out, his instincts were spot on. So fast forward to today, and we see just how far neural networks have come. But one of the things that Hinton brings up is this distinction between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. Even with models like ChatGPT possessing this vast amount of knowledge, he argues that humans still have this edge when it comes to reasoning.
It really makes you wonder, how can humans, with our limited lifespans and processing power, still outperform AI in certain areas? And Hinton points out that AI, as powerful as it is still incredibly data dependent. It learns by crunching massive amounts of information.
Often across huge networks of computers.
Yeah, exactly. Humans, on the other hand, can learn and adapt much more efficiently with far less data. We make these intuitive leaps that AI just hasn't mastered yet.
Which kind of brings us to this whole debate about true understanding versus just pattern recognition. Does AI truly grasp the meaning of what it's processing, or is it simply mimicking human intelligence based on the data it's been fed?
And Hinton uses this really striking analogy to describe ChatGPT. He calls it an idiot savant, capable of amazing feats, but lacking that deeper understanding of the world that humans possess.
Okay, so let's unpack that idiot savant idea a bit more. What exactly does Hinton mean by that? What are the telltale signs that AI, for all its advancements, still falls short of true understanding?
Well, imagine you ask ChatGPT to write a poem about love. It might produce something that rhymes, uses evocative language, even seems to capture some of the emotional nuances of love.
But does it actually understand what love is?
Right. Does it feel the complex emotions that humans associate with love? Probably not. It's simply drawing on patterns it's observed in the data it's been trained on without truly grasping the underlying concepts.
So it's like the difference between memorizing a recipe and actually understanding the chemistry and techniques involved in baking a cake.
Exactly.
You might be able to follow the steps and produce something edible, but you don't truly grasp the underlying principles.
And this lack of true understanding leads to some of the issues we see with AI and truth. These models are trained on massive amounts of data, and that data often contains inconsistencies and contradictions. People have different opinions, beliefs, biases.
So when an AI tries to synthesize all of that, it can end up generating responses that are factually incorrect or even nonsensical.
Right.
It's almost like it's trying to please everyone and ends up pleasing no one. It gets lost in the sea of information and loses sight of what's actually true.
That's a great way to put it. And this brings up a really critical ethical question.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide what's true in an AI-driven world? Can AI even navigate subjective truths, or should it be strictly bound to objective reality?
These are questions we need to be asking ourselves right now because AI is rapidly becoming more integrated into our lives, and these questions are going to have real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about making AI smarter, but also about making it more responsible, making sure it's aligned with our values and doesn't lead us down a path that we ultimately regret.
And Hinton is a huge advocate for responsible AI development. He stresses the need for a collective effort. Governments, corporations, researchers, all working together to ensure that AI is developed and used ethically and safely.
But of course, there are always going to be challenges, right? Especially when you consider the economic forces driving AI development. Companies are in a race to be first to innovate to profit. So how do we balance that with the need for caution and ethical considerations?
It's a tightrope walk for sure. Hinton himself acknowledges this tension. He's pointed out that market forces can sometimes lead to reckless behavior. Companies might cut corners or rush products to market without fully thinking through the consequences.
And that's where regulation and ethical guidelines become so important. Okay, let's talk about some of the specific concerns that Hinton raises. One that really stood out to me was this whole idea of AI being used in warfare. He seems particularly troubled by the development of autonomous weapons.
Yeah, this is where things get really concerning. He points to the development of self-healing minefields as a particularly chilling example.
Imagine a weapon that can adapt and essentially repair itself, making it even more lethal.
It's a terrifying prospect.
It really is, and it highlights this whole issue of control, right? As AI systems become increasingly autonomous, how can we guarantee that they'll act in ways that are beneficial to humans? What's to stop them from developing harmful sub-goals that could put us at risk?
That's the crux of what's known as the alignment problem. And it's something that Hinton has spent a lot of time thinking about. He even draws a comparison to someone like Vladimir Putin, suggesting that even if countries like the US and Canada implement strict safety measures, there's no guarantee that everyone will follow suit.
So the potential for AI to be misused in the wrong hands is a very real and frightening possibility. It's almost like we're standing at this crossroads with AI. It has the potential to revolutionize so many aspects of our lives for the better, but it also comes with these profound risks and ethical dilemmas that we can't afford to ignore.
It's a double-edged sword. And that's why Hinton's perspective is so valuable. He's not just a brilliant technologist, but he's someone who's deeply concerned about the impact of AI on society. He's urging us to think critically about the future we're creating and to make sure that AI remains a tool that benefits humanity rather than something that threatens our very existence.
So let's shift gears for a bit and talk about some of the potential positive impacts of AI. Despite his concerns, Hinton is also optimistic about AI's potential to transform industries and improve our lives. In fact, he pushes back on this idea that AI is just autocomplete, arguing that it's capable of much more.
He uses the example of translation to illustrate this point.
Right. It's tempting to think of AI as just, stringing words together.
But to accurately translate between languages, an AI system has to understand not just vocabulary, but also grammar context, even cultural nuances.
It has to grasp the subtleties of meaning and intent.
Right, and convey it accurately. It requires a level of sophistication that goes way beyond simple pattern matching.
He actually gives some fascinating examples of how AI has to understand spatial relationships and pronoun references to translate sentences correctly.
It's not just about finding the equivalent word in another language. It's about understanding the deeper meaning.
So while we need to be wary of the risks, we also need to acknowledge this incredible potential that AI has to solve problems and create new possibilities.
Absolutely.
It's this dual nature of AI that makes it so fascinating and so crucial to understand.
Exactly. It's this tension between the potential benefits and the potential risks that makes AI such a compelling and challenging subject.
And Hinton, with his decades of experience in the field, is uniquely positioned to guide us through this complex landscape. Now let's talk about Hinton's vision for the future of AI. He seems particularly excited about the potential of large language models to revolutionize businesses. He's even invested in companies like Cohere, which are developing AI tools for a wide range of applications.
And he has this really intriguing vision of AI running on low-power systems. This suggests a future where everyday devices like our toasters could have conversational AI capabilities.
Okay, imagine waking up to your toaster giving you personalized stock tips.
Or suggesting a new recipe based on what's in your fridge.
That's both exciting and a little unnerving, isn't it? It makes you wonder about the implications for privacy, security, and control. Who has access to all this data and how is it being used?
Absolutely.
These are questions we need to be asking as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives.
It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we use it and what safeguards we put in place to ensure that it's used responsibly and ethically.
Now let's delve into one of the most intriguing and potentially unsettling aspects of AI, its capacity for self-improvement. Hinton acknowledges the possibility of AI systems becoming capable of improving themselves, which could lead to exponential progress and raise entirely new ethical concerns.
It's a mind-boggling concept to wrap your head around. Imagine an AI that can not only learn from the data we feed it, but can also analyze its own code, identify areas for improvement, and actually rewrite itself to become more efficient, more intelligent, more everything.
It's like something out of science fiction, and it takes the alignment problem to a whole new level. If AI can evolve on its own, how can we guarantee that its goals remain aligned with ours? How can we control something that's constantly learning and changing, potentially at a rate that far exceeds our own ability to comprehend?
It's a question that has no easy answers, but it's one that we need to be grappling with as AI becomes increasingly sophisticated.
And Hinton, despite his deep involvement in AI, admits to having some reservations about what he's helped create. He reflects on the potential impact of his own contributions and emphasizes the need for society to prepare for the transformative changes that AI will inevitably bring.
It's a testament to his humility and his willingness to confront the ethical complexities of his work. He's not just a cheerleader for AI, he's a voice of reason, urging us to proceed with caution and to consider the long-term consequences of our actions.
It's refreshing to hear someone with his level of expertise express these kinds of concerns.
He's acutely aware of the fact that AI is a double-edged sword, and he's urging us to tread carefully.
It's like he's saying, look, I helped create this incredibly powerful tool, but it's up to all of us to figure out how to use it wisely and responsibly. And that brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects of Hinton's perspective. His belief that AI development was to some extent inevitable.
He said that even if he hadn't made the contributions he did, someone else would have eventually made those breakthroughs.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? It suggests that we're part of a much larger historical process, and that the development of AI is not just about individual brilliance, it's about this convergence of technological advancements, societal needs, and human curiosity.
Like we're riding a wave that's been building for decades, and there's no turning back.
So the question becomes, how do we navigate this wave? How do we harness its power without getting swept away by it?
That's the challenge, and Hinton's insights provide valuable guidance as we embark on this journey. He's urging us to be proactive, not reactive, to shape this technology, not let it shape us.
You know, it's interesting. Despite all the complex technical details we've discussed, one of the things that sticks with me most is Hinton's analogy of the idiot savant.
It's a powerful image.
It's such a vivid way to describe where AI is right now incredibly capable but lacking that true depth of understanding.
And it highlights the importance of not getting carried away by the hype.
Yeah.
AI has made incredible strides, but it's still in its early stages of development. We need to be realistic about its limitations and avoid attributing human-like qualities to it prematurely.
Which ties back to this whole discussion about consciousness and sentience. Just because an AI can generate human-like text or hold a seemingly intelligent conversation doesn't mean it's actually experiencing the world in the same way we do. We need to be careful about anthropomorphizing AI. It's a tool, albeit a very powerful one, but it's not a human being.
It doesn't have the same feelings, emotions, or subjective experiences that we do.
And I think that's a crucial point to keep in mind as we develop and interact with these systems. We need to treat them with respect, but we also need to maintain a clear understanding of their limitations. We don't want to fall into the trap of believing that AI is more human than it actually is.
It's about finding that balance between recognizing AI's potential and acknowledging its limitations. We don't want to stifle innovation, but we also don't want to rush headlong into a future that we're not prepared for.
Okay, let's talk about Hinton's views on the future of jobs. He's pointed out that AI is rapidly advancing in fields that were once considered exclusively human domains. He even predicted that radiologists would be replaced by AI within 5 years. Although he admits that timeline was a bit optimistic, he was a little ahead of the curve on that one. But even if the timeline is off, the underlying point still stands. AI is encroaching on professions that were once considered the exclusive domain of highly trained humans. And that raises some big questions about the future of work, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, will AI ultimately create more jobs than it eliminates? Or are we headed for mass unemployment as machines become capable of doing more and more of the tasks that humans currently do? It's a question that a lot of people are wrestling with.
And Hinton himself doesn't offer a definitive prediction, but he does provide some food for thought. He suggests that in some fields like coding, we might see a shift in the types of jobs available rather than an outright replacement of human workers. What do you think he means by that?
Well, it's essentially saying that rather than fewer coders overall, we might see the same number of coders, but they'll be achieving much more. AI could automate certain aspects of coding, making the process more efficient. This would free up coders to focus on higher-level tasks that require more creativity, problem-solving skills, and that uniquely human touch.
So it's not necessarily about humans versus machines, but rather humans working alongside machines, each playing to their strengths.
Exactly.
AI handles the repetitive rule-based tasks while humans bring the creativity, intuition, and critical thinking to the table.
And we're already seeing this happening in a number of fields. For instance, think about how AI tools like ChatGPT are being used to generate code. It's not perfect yet, but it can definitely handle some of the more tedious and time-consuming aspects of programming, freeing up human coders to focus on the bigger picture.
So it's almost like AI becomes a partner augmenting human capabilities rather than replacing them entirely. And that brings us to the issue of how we prepare for these changes in the workforce. What can we do to make sure that people are equipped with the skills they'll need to thrive in an AI-driven world?
Well, Hinton emphasizes the importance of education and training programs that equip people with the skills they'll need to navigate an AI-driven world. And that's not just about technical skills, but also about fostering critical thinking, problem-solving, and adaptability. These are the uniquely human qualities that will become even more valuable as AI takes on more of the routine tasks.
Because those are the things that AI, at least for now, can't replicate. It can process information, follow rules, and generate outputs, but it can't truly think outside the box, come up with novel solutions, or understand the nuances of human emotions and interactions.
Right. And it's crucial to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. It's up to us to guide its development and ensure that it's used in a way that benefits humanity as a whole. Hinton is a strong advocate for what he calls collective responsibility in AI development. He argues that it can't just be left to corporations or governments. Researchers, ethicists, and even the general public need to be involved in shaping the future of AI.
He's really calling for a multi-stakeholder approach, recognizing that AI is too important to be left in the hands of any one group. And one of the areas where he's particularly vocal is in the potential dangers of military AI. He seems especially troubled by the idea of autonomous weapons systems.
He's made it very clear that he believes these kinds of weapons pose a significant threat to humanity. He uses the example of self-healing minefields to illustrate this point. Imagine a weapon that can adapt and repair itself, essentially making it more lethal over time.
It's a deeply unsettling thought. It brings up all sorts of questions about control and accountability. If an autonomous weapon system makes a mistake or causes unintended harm, who's responsible? How do you hold a machine accountable?
These are precisely the kinds of questions that we need to be asking now before these technologies become widely deployed. And Hinton has been very vocal in urging the international community to establish regulations and treaties to govern the development and use of AI in warfare.
He's essentially calling for a Geneva Convention for AI.
Which is a powerful image.
It highlights the need to set clear boundaries and ethical guidelines to make sure that AI is used responsibly and doesn't become a threat to humanity.
He argues that we need to be proactive in establishing safeguards and regulations, rather than waiting for something to go wrong before we act. He's calling for a global conversation about the ethical implications of AI, and he's urging us to think carefully about the kind of future we want to create with this technology.
Now let's switch gears for a moment and talk about something that Hinton mentioned that I found really intriguing. The idea of AI systems developing their own worldviews. It gets into some deep philosophical territory. What exactly did he mean by that?
Well, Hinton envisions a future where AI systems will be able to understand and respond to different perspectives, different ways of seeing the world. This raises the question of what truth even means in an AI-driven world.
Right. If an AI system can understand and articulate multiple perspectives, even conflicting ones, how do we determine which perspective is correct? Who gets to decide what's true in that context?
It's a really fascinating challenge, and it gets to the heart of the tension between objective reality and subjective experience. There are certain facts about the world that are objectively true, like the fact that the Earth is round, but there are also many aspects of human experience that are subjective based on our individual beliefs, values, and cultural backgrounds.
So how do we teach an AI to navigate this complex landscape of truth and perspective?
It's a question that Hinton doesn't necessarily have a definitive answer to, but he suggests that it's something we need to be thinking very carefully about. He even raises the possibility that AI systems might need to be able to acknowledge different perspectives without necessarily endorsing any particular one.
That's a really interesting idea, and it gets at the heart of what it means to be intelligent. It suggests that true intelligence isn't just about processing information and arriving at a single correct answer. It's also about being able to hold multiple perspectives in mind, to consider different viewpoints, and to understand that there isn't always a clear-cut right or wrong.
It's almost like AI would need to develop a kind of meta-awareness, an understanding that there are multiple ways of seeing the world, and that its own perspective is just one among many.
And that brings up all sorts of new questions about consciousness, sentience, and the nature of reality itself.
It's a mind-bending thought experiment, and it highlights just how complex the relationship between humans and AI is becoming. We're not just building machines, we're building machines that are starting to think about thinking to reflect on their own place in the world. And that has profound implications for how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe.
It's almost like AI is holding up a mirror to our own intelligence, forcing us to examine our own assumptions and biases. And one of the things that strikes me about Hinton's perspective is his humility. Despite being one of the pioneers of AI, he doesn't shy away from acknowledging the potential risks and challenges that this technology poses. He's even expressed some regret about his own contributions to the field.
He's been very open about the fact that he has mixed feelings about the role he's played in the development of AI. And he wonders if he might have inadvertently accelerated the development of AI and brought us closer to a potentially dangerous future. But at the same time, he recognizes that AI development was probably inevitable.
It's like he's saying that the genie is out of the bottle, and now we have to figure out how to live with it. So the question becomes, how do we move forward responsibly? What steps can we take to ensure that AI is used for good and not for harm?
Well, Hinton emphasizes the importance of open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of AI. He believes that we need to involve a wide range of stakeholders in shaping the development of this technology, and that we need to be proactive in establishing safeguards and regulations. He's also stressed the need for education. We need to make sure that people understand how AI works, what its potential impacts are, and how they can use it responsibly.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up radiologists, because Hinton uses that as an example of how AI is going to transform the workforce.
Yeah.
He originally said that radiologists would be replaced by AI within 5 years, but he admits now that that was a bit optimistic.
He was a little ahead of the curve on that one. But even if the timeline is off, the point still stands. AI is like encroaching on these professions that were once thought to be exclusively human.
And that raises some big questions about the future of work.
Absolutely. Like, will AI create more jobs than it eliminates? Or are we headed towards mass unemployment as machines become capable of doing more and more of the tasks that humans currently do?
It's the question everyone's asking.
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking about that.
And Hinton doesn't give like a definite prediction, but he offers some interesting thoughts. He suggests that in some fields like coding, we might see a shift in the types of jobs available, rather than just like humans being replaced. So what do you think he means by that?
Well, he's basically saying that instead of fewer coders overall, we might see the same number of coders, but they'll be doing a lot more. AI could automate some parts of coding, which would make it more efficient. And this would free up coders to focus on like higher level tasks, the ones that need more creativity, problem solving, and that, uniquely human touch.
So it's not necessarily about humans versus machines, but humans working with machines.
Yeah, each playing to their strengths.
AI handles the repetitive rule-based stuff, and humans bring the creativity and the intuition and the critical thinking.
Exactly. And we're already seeing this happening in different fields. Like, think about ChatGPT and how it's being used to generate code. Now, it's not perfect yet, but it can definitely handle some of the tedious, time-consuming parts of programming. This frees up human coders to focus on the bigger picture.
It's like AI becomes a partner, augmenting human capabilities instead of replacing them. Which brings us to, how do we prepare for these changes? How do we equip people with the skills they'll need to thrive in an AI-driven world?
Well, Hinton really emphasizes education and training programs. programs that give people the skills they'll need to navigate this world. And it's not just about technical skills, it's also about critical thinking, problem solving, being able to adapt. These are the uniquely human things that will become even more valuable as AI starts doing more of the routine tasks.
Because those are the things that AI, at least for now, can't do. AI can, process information, follow rules, generate outputs, but it can't think outside the box or come up with new solutions or really understand human emotions and interactions.
Right. And it's so important to remember that AI is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. And it's up to us to guide its development and make sure it's used in a way that's good for humanity. Hinton really pushes for what he calls collective responsibility in developing AI. He says it can't just be left to companies or governments. Researchers, ethicists, even the general public need to be involved in shaping the future of AI.
So he's calling for a multi-stakeholder approach, because AI is too important to be left to any one group. And one of the areas where he's particularly concerned is the potential dangers of AI in the military. He's really troubled by autonomous weapons systems.
Yeah, he's been very clear about that. He believes that these weapons are a serious threat to humanity. He uses the example of self-healing minefields. Like imagine a weapon that can adapt and repair itself, making it even more deadly over time.
It's a scary thought. It raises questions about control and accountability. If an autonomous weapon system makes a mistake or hurts someone who's responsible, how do you hold a machine responsible?
That's exactly the type of question we need to be asking now. Before these technologies are everywhere, Hinton's been urging the international community to make rules and treaties about developing and using AI in war.
He's calling for a Geneva Convention for AI,
which I think is a powerful image.
It really highlights the need for clear rules and ethical guidelines so we can make sure AI is used responsibly and doesn't become a threat to humanity.
He says we need to be proactive about establishing safeguards and regulations, rather than waiting for something bad to happen and then reacting. He wants a global conversation about the ethical implications of AI, and he wants us to really think about the kind of future we want with this technology.
Okay, so let's change gears a bit and talk about something Hinton mentioned that I thought was really interesting, the idea of AI systems developing their own worldviews. It's like getting into some deep philosophical stuff. So what did he mean by that?
Hinton imagines a future where AI can understand and respond to different perspectives, different ways of seeing the world. And this raises the question of what truth even means in a world run by AI.
Right, because if an AI can understand and explain multiple viewpoints, even ones that conflict, how do we know which one is right? Who gets to decide what's true in that situation?
It's a fascinating challenge. It gets to the core of objective reality versus subjective experience. There are some facts about the world that are objectively true, like the Earth is round. But a lot of human experience is subjective based on our beliefs, values, and backgrounds.
So how do we teach an AI to deal with this complex idea of truth and perspective?
Hinton doesn't really have a clear answer to that, but he says it's something we need to think hard about. He even suggests that AI might need to be able to recognize different perspectives without necessarily agreeing with any of them.
That's a very interesting idea. It makes you think about what it really means to be intelligent. It suggests that true intelligence isn't just about processing information and finding the right answer. It's also about understanding different viewpoints and realizing that there isn't always a clear right or wrong.
Yeah, it's like AI would have to develop a kind of meta-awareness and understanding that there are many ways to see the world and that its own view is just one of many.
That brings up all these new questions about consciousness, sentience, and what reality even is.
It's a mind-blowing idea, and it shows how complex the relationship between humans and AI is becoming. We're not just building machines, we're building machines that are starting to think about thinking, to think about their place in the world. And that has big implications for how we see ourselves and our place in the universe.
It's like AI is holding up a mirror to our own intelligence and making us question our assumptions and biases. And what I find remarkable about Hinton is his humility. Even though he's a pioneer in AI, he's not afraid to admit the potential risks and challenges. He's even said he has some regrets about his contributions.
He's been very open about his mixed feelings about his role in developing AI. He wonders if he maybe sped up the development of AI and brought us closer to a dangerous future. But he also knows that AI development was probably going to happen anyway.
It's like he's saying the genie's out of the bottle, and now we have to learn to live with it. So how do we move forward responsibly? What can we do to make sure AI is used for good?
Well, Hinton says we need to have open and honest conversations about the good and bad of AI. He thinks we need to involve a lot of different people in shaping AI, and we need to be proactive about making safeguards and regulations. He's also emphasized education, making sure people understand how AI works, what it can do, and how to use it responsibly.
Okay, so let's dig deeper into the impact of AI on jobs.
Mhm.
Hinton said that AI will change jobs, and we talked about radiologists. He's also talked about how AI will affect coding jobs. What are some other areas where AI will probably have a big impact on work?
We're already seeing AI being used in lots of industries, from manufacturing and transportation to healthcare and finance. In manufacturing, robots with AI are doing jobs that humans used to do. In transportation, we're seeing self-driving cars and trucks, which could replace a lot of drivers. And in healthcare, AI is being used to diagnose diseases, find and do treatments, and even provide personalized care.
So it's not just blue-collar jobs. White-collar jobs are also at risk. It seems like AI is going to change every part of the economy.
Right. And it's not just about jobs disappearing. A lot of jobs will change as AI takes over certain tasks. For example, in law level, AI is being used to review documents and do legal research. This doesn't necessarily mean lawyers will be out of work, but their jobs will change. They'll need to focus on higher-level things like advising clients and arguing cases in court.
So we need to adapt and focus on developing skills that are human skills that AI can't do yet. Things like creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and complex problem solving. It's about realizing that AI can be a powerful tool, but it's still just a tool. It's up to us to decide how to use it and make sure it's used for good.
And that brings us back to Hinton's idea of collective responsibility. We need to talk openly and honestly about AI, and we need to work together to create a future where AI benefits everyone.
That's a good transition to something else Hinton talked about, the need to better understand what intelligence actually is. He thinks our current idea of intelligence is limited, and that AI is making us rethink what it means to be intelligent. What do you think?
I think he's right. We usually define intelligence in human terms, focusing on logic, reasoning, problem solving. But AI is showing us that there are other kinds of intelligence, and some of them might be beyond what we understand right now, like how AI can process huge amounts of data and find patterns that humans wouldn't see. That's a form of intelligence, but we don't fully understand it.
It's like AI is challenging our definition of intelligence. It's making us think more broadly and recognize that there are other ways of knowing and understanding the world. And that's what's so exciting about AI. It's not just about making smarter machines. It's about understanding intelligence itself. It's about understanding how our minds work and what makes us human.
It's a journey of discovery, and it could change not just our technology, but how we see ourselves and our place in the universe.
Yeah, it really is a mind-blowing idea that we might create something smarter than us. It's exciting, but also a bit scary, you know?
Yeah, it definitely makes you think. And I think what's so great about Hinton is that he's not afraid to ask those tough questions. He's not just excited about the tech years. He's really thinking about the ethics of it all. And he keeps saying, we need to be careful and think about the future we want to create with AI.
You know what struck me is that even with all the risks he talks about, Hinton still seems to believe that AI can be a good thing. He sees it as a way to solve some of our biggest problems, like climate change and disease and poverty.
Yeah, he seems pretty optimistic about AI improving our lives. But he also says it's not guaranteed. It's up to us to make sure AI is developed and used in a responsible and ethical way. And that means everyone needs to be involved. It can't just be the tech people. We need policymakers, ethicists, social scientists, and regular people to shape the future of AI.
He's calling for a big conversation about AI, right? He's saying we can't just sit back and watch it happen. We need to be actively involved in shaping it and making sure it aligns with our values.
Exactly. And one of the most important things we can do is learn about AI. The more we know how it works, what it can do, and the ethical issues, the better we'll be at making good decisions about its place in our lives.
Okay, so let's talk about specific actions. What can individuals, governments, and companies do to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly?
Well, for individuals, I think staying informed is key. Read articles, listen to podcasts, go to talks. The more you know, the better you can be part of the conversation and advocate for responsible AI. You can also support organizations working on AI ethics and policy.
What about governments? What's their role?
They have a big role in regulating AI and making ethical guidelines. They need to create laws and policies that protect people from potential harms, but also encourage innovation. They also need to invest in research and development to make sure AI is used for good.
And how about corporations? What's their responsibility?
Companies developing and using AI have a responsibility to do it ethically and transparently. They need to think about how their AI products and services could impact society. And they need to be accountable for any harm that happens. They also need to work with governments and others to develop good ethical guidelines and best practices.
So we all have a part to play. And it's a future with both good and bad possibilities.
For sure, AI can change our lives in amazing ways, but it could also create new problems or make existing ones worse. It's up to us to make sure the benefits are bigger than the risks.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today, and I hope everyone listening has a better understanding of how complex AI is and why it's so important to have these thoughtful discussions about its future. Any last thoughts?
Just to say again that the future of AI isn't set in stone. It's up to us to shape it. And we start by asking questions, talking to each other, and working together to create a future where AI is a force for good.
I agree completely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Geoffrey Hinton's insights, I want to thank you for joining us. We've explored some really fascinating and thought-provoking ideas, and I hope you'll keep thinking critically about AI and its place in your life and in the world. Until next time, stay curious.